decision briefly to appoint a particular person to his cabinet?
What I've heard is that he was playing soccer on Tuesday, the night before. So he also was not very, he was caught off guard by what happened. But regardless of what the true intention is, we cannot allow this to keep going on. You know, I think that's using ethics as a weapon to get rid of politicians, of elected officials. It's not going to do any good, and that's why the current cabinet has the picture or the outcome like this. That's why you have brother of someone. That's why you have proxy leadership. That's why you have the daughter, you have the father running the country, and that's not leadership. I mean, it's dynasty politics. Is proxy leadership. Is not the ability to really assess the situation and come up with a robust proposed recommendations and choose the one that matches the issues at hand. Something that gives someone the authority or the paragon of moral policing. It's not going to be, shouldn't be the case.
Okay. In the spirit of moving forward, what vision do you have for Thailand? And what role do you see yourself playing in it?
To have a vision for Thailand that a single mother in a rural area of Thailand can work 2 jobs even and have enough to provide for the family. Waking up in the morning, there'll be public transportation to take the kids to school that's not too far from the house. In the evening, they can come home, talk about the day, and enjoy a meal together, and not just every Thai New Year, not every Songkran or not every New Year that they get to meet each other, because Thailand has been militarized, monopolized, and over-centralized that Bangkok is Thailand and Thailand is Bangkok. So if you pick an average person in Thailand, in order for you to enjoy what I had just said, what I just said, is very difficult. You will probably have to leave your hometown because there's no decent jobs over there. Public transportation is really bad. And you probably have to end up in Bangkok, Rayong, or Chiang Mai, or Phuket, you know, serving privileged overseas people who are enjoying the beauty of Thailand, whereas for them, the public health that they're enjoying in their hometown versus what the tourist is enjoying is probably 5 times difference in terms of education, in terms of health. So that's simple and realistic, I think, for the most marginalized people in Thailand to really enjoy the potential that the country offers, and not just the top 1%.
Okay, we'll now open up the floor for discussion and questions. Let's take a round of questions from the audience in the room. Yes, please.
I think, can you hear me from here? Thank you for your presentation. And my name is Nancy Chung. I used to be a journalist many years ago in Thailand, covering Thai politics. You talked about the freedom to talk about military and the media and monopolies. What about the 4th M, about monarchy? Is your party maybe too naive to be pushing for reform so publicly, so early, about changing lèse-majesté laws or stuff like that, and for outside observers?
So 3-part questions. First, let me be clear that we were trying to reform while preserving the monarchy. The amendment of lèse-majesté law does not equal to treason or insurrection. Second, we're not the first. Democrat Party was the first, maybe 10 years ago when they had the reconciliation process. Former Prime Minister Abhisit Vejjajiva had a conduct a study of how we bring together the Thai people, stop the polarization, and amendment of 112 was part of it. So we're not too early into it, for sure, because we're not the first. And in order to do that, during the debate last year, the current Prime Minister was also in favor of amending. The Justice Minister on my left side was also in favor of amending. So to me, because we are a constitutional monarchy, and monarchy should be revered above politics and should not be used as an excuse not to follow up on the Prime Minister's choice or to ban a party, I feel like that's not beneficial or not a boon to any institutions in Thailand. And if you are a true Democrat in a constitutional monarchy, you would not use the revered institution as an excuse to anything, because the king can do no wrong, the king can do nothing. So we're not the first to do that. The third part was about blaming. You know, as a politician, you can never blame the people. You can only blame yourself. I mean, if you are not energized yourself, if you're not excited about delivering policies, if you don't have that iron in you, just like how Lee Kuan Yew was telling his supporters back before I was born, then yeah, they're not going to go out to vote. I mean, it's not compulsory like any other countries in Latin America, and you know they have a choice to make. Either you know they take care of their Hainanese chicken noodle shop or chicken rice, or they travel 10 kilometers up the mountain to go vote. So yes, it's our job as parliamentarian to use the parliament and legislative power to make sure that voting is easy, voting is convenient. We also have to deliver our demeanor, our policies, our communication strategies to reach them on air, on ground, on site, on net. So not just social media and you don't show up to people. It has to be on ground and on net and on air and on site, you know, making sure that you are everywhere and you communicate it very articulately, very concise, very crisp. And that's how you make sure that people are not cynical about going to vote. It's really up to you and not up to them. They have the right and the freedom to choose whether they come out to vote or not. It really depends on the politician. Yeah. So I think I answer your question comprehensively.
Yes. Sorry, I'm behind you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peter, Napon, and Duncan. I'm Joanne from the Institute. I would like to bring the discussion to current developments that are happening in Thailand right now. I actually heard many reports indicating that Prime Minister Paetongtarn is likely to be investigated for many violations of ethical standards, very familiar happenings again, and of course the unlawful interference from her father Thaksin. So I'm just wondering, in the case, you know, that she's ousted from power, similar to Mr. Strata, what would be the scenario going forward for Thailand? I mean, can Pattaya appoint another prime minister? Would there be a caretaker government? Or would there be another snap election? It's really like the Groundhog Day, you know, happening all over again. So thank you.
So 12 investigation to be precise. And that's what the current prime minister is facing. And I disagree with all 12. When it comes to these things, first of all, morality should, like I said, should be available in the culture, but should not be enforced or should not be penalized. And if it were to be penalized, it should be proportionate. Proportionality is something that is lacking from rule of law here in Thailand. Just because you appoint someone who serve some jail time, and the punishment should be that, for example, that he is dismissed from the cabinet or something like that. But he should not be dismissed from the premiership just because of a small thing that he did. And also the standards, the double standards that could happen. Some served some jail time, some got arrested, you know, and still on the cabinet in the past. So how do you reconcile, how do you explain this? The second part of your question is about planning ahead scenarios. So Pheu Thai unlike Move Forward Party had 3 prime ministerial candidates. For Move Forward Party, it was only me. We wanted to be very clear to the people that once they voted for us, then you get what you voted for, which is me, whether you like me or not. But it's clear. It's going to be me. It's not going to be somebody else. But for them, they went with 3 candidates, with the Constitution allows. So Seta is number 1, Pat Hong Tan is number 2, and there's another legal scholar, number 3. I heard some health problems. I don't know, Attorney General, I think. Yeah. So he's still technically available to be number 3 if Pat Hong Tan was to be removed. And then there was a couple of prime ministerial candidates left. Number 3 is Phum Jai Thai Party or Cannabis Party. Maybe you're probably familiar with Phum Jai Party. Politically conservative, socially cannabis. so you get the point, yeah. But so Phum Jai Thai Party is also a possibility of moving to number 3, and snap election is also something of possibility if people demand. The legitimacy and the trust between the government and its people is not there anymore, and snap election is also possible. But snap elections in Thailand is usually when the coalition breaks apart. The uncle parties, there's 2 of them. One is out of the picture, and one is still inside, holding some ministerial roles. Revenge is also possible from the coalition turn opposition. So it's going to be shaking up the stability of Pat Hong Tan's administration, and I wish her that she has that stamina and the focus, because you got to be laser sharp focus now when it comes to a lot of things that are going on: the climate change, the digital disruption, the aging society. The second largest nation in ASEAN, which is us, it's the second slowest. That explains the situation of Thailand in a sentence. Second largest, but the second slowest in terms of growth. Yeah. So that's something that is ahead of her, and I wish that she has that ready, willing, and able to take on all these things.
Okay, let's take one more question from people in the room. Yes, please.
Hello, is the mic clear? Okay. So firstly, thank you, Mr. Peter, for sharing. I'm Singro, one of the students from NTU here today. You mentioned about a lifetime ban, a possible lifetime ban due to ethical violations. So anyone can see that there's a huge distortion of the law to manipulate political outcomes in Thailand. So there's a lot of hypocrisy. One party can be charged while another party can be easily let off. So this is something that's very common in Asian countries as well. So my question is, what exactly can be done in the face of using law as a weapon when the constitution itself is not being upheld anymore? So there are crossroads within crossroads, but where are they headed towards? Does your party hold a map? Thank you.
We do have our own map, but whether it's the same map as other people, that's a different story. The way to go is how to keep the referee accountable, how to watch the watchdog, how to make sure that independent organizations are truly independent. And that requires a couple of things that I had mentioned to Professor. We're doing 3 things: the origin of courts and election commission, and also transparency is the second, and accountability is the third. We introduced this independent organizations, whether it's the Constitutional Court, Election Commission, Anti-Corruption Commission, back in 1997, wanted to keep elected politicians accountable, and also have some intersection between the 3 separation of powers. But it turned out that it was a dubious setting. It actually went the opposite way of what it's supposed to do. Article 49, that they punish me, is supposed to make sure that the court thinks about the legality of military coup, for example, 12 times in the history of Thailand. So instead of using rule of law to think about, preventing someone from striking a military coup, Instead, it turned against a parliamentarian who wanted to find consensus through a constitutional, through an article amendment in the court where I cannot monopolize. Everybody gets to say what they want, and then we have to vote, and then we set up a committee, and then we vote again, and then it can be reversed by the senators. It can be reversed by the constitutional court if you follow the process. But now the judicial overreach, it just hits the parliamentarian like that. The origin came from the European model, the German model. So I recently just visited Berlin, and I asked where they get these independent judges from, and some of them are not even a legal scholar. Some of them, I understand, where they were questioning me, like in front of me, and they were asking me about heritage law because of the shareholding. The questions that were asked, I knew right away he didn't have the legal background. And then he turned out to be a dean of political science or a dean of economics or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But to decide who becomes the prime minister or to suspend someone from his parliamentary duty without a strong legal background or without a strong legal experience is something that is pretty fishy to me. And then the German model, they have 18, and it's jointly selected with the lower house and the upper house. So the lower house in German is also through election also. If this is the origin of Thailand, for example, so we get a say of who gets to be the judges on the constitutional court and provide some linkages to the people. That's the origin. The transparency, if we criticize or if we disagree respectfully to the ruling of the Constitutional Court, we get into even more trouble. So in order for you, because you're independent, and you need some check and balance also, regardless whether you're executive, legislative, or judicial. And in order for someone to have the freedom of speech to criticize or to constructively criticize the reading or the ruling, it should be allowed, if for the benefit of the society, for example. The last one is on the accountability. They hold other people accountable, but they don't have to show accountability. So because of that, they can just decide on whatever they feel that they're depending on, but not to the people, that's for sure. So if we take care of all these three things, we might be able to institutionalize the rule of law or the judicial side of Thai democracy and do what it's supposed to do rather than lawfare or using judicial activism as it is today.
Okay, let's now turn to questions from people who are attending this event online. This question is from Ken Lohatepanon. You mentioned that there are many figures around the world that you respect. Could you let us know which Thai politician, past or present, from outside the Future Forward and Move Forward People parties, whom you admire the most and why?
Jacinda Ardern, Pepe of Uruguay.
Thai politician.
I know, because there's no rule that I have to answer the exact question that is being asked. But when you hold someone as a role model, it should not be discriminated just because of the nationality and things like that. But these two are someone that I look up to, that I study, that I spend a lot of time with. I grew up in New Zealand from Hamilton, and Jacinda Ardern for what she had to go through during the COVID crisis and Christchurch massacre. I draw a lot of admiration from her.
We have a question from Tritep Sisanga. Is Thailand even a democracy today? In a sense, the current administration came through free, though not fair, elections. The appointed senators are no longer in the picture. And the second question from Tritep is, for the past two elections, Future Forward Party and Move Forward Party thrived thanks largely to two factors: the failures and lack of legitimacy of the old regime, the uncles, and the anger of some voters against traditional politicians and the elites. Would the People's Party enjoy such factors come the next election?
To me, I remember taking a class at Harvard Kennedy School, and I was from a Yale professor, but I can't remember. Do you reckon who this is? Very old. Back in the days, a Yale professor, and he was saying election is one of them, control of the agenda, freedom of the press, a peaceful transition, and of power. So those things are the criteria. I can't remember the name. I remember he went to Yale, and this is like 1940 or something like that. But I feel like that's like the minimum of a democratic society to do. Inability to just having an election that's a competitive autocracy that allows elections, like I said. But the control of the agenda, the ability of the people to peacefully gather for a peaceful protest without any violence, ability for the press to express or criticize or becoming the check and balance to the government, and ability to peacefully transfer power to the next government with 12 military coup successful, 20 attempts. It's very hard for me to call Thailand a full democracy. I mean, we have elections, that's for sure. It's very hard to explain to a lot of international community diplomats when they ask what's wrong. I mean, Thailand is still a democracy. You have elections. Even you didn't get to become the prime minister. Sweden is the same. Number 2, become the prime minister because they couldn't agree on immigration. But you have to go through the complexity of explaining that they're appointed, that the judges that disband me are directly appointed by the military junta or indirectly appointed by the military junta, and the constitution that is being used now, you can never amend it because it was a supermajority designed by the military junta and things like that. So it's very hard to explain to a lot of people who don't follow it on a day-to-day basis. But I would say that Thailand is still far from being a full democracy. And that's a hope for me to make sure that it's an institutionalized and full-fledged democracy where the view of the people get answered.
The second question of Tritep is, for the past elections, Future Forward, Move Forward won largely because people were tired of the uncles and the old regime. Do you see the same scenario playing out in the next election?
I think it's too soon to tell because the next election is in 2 years and 3 years, and a lot can change during that time. As an analyst that wanted to forecast Thai politics beyond 6 months, it's not going to have a good time. So there's a lot of things that we need to incorporate in order to get that outcome. Many scenarios can happen, but I feel like in order to be able to
กล้าทุกความท้าทาย Ford Everest
be successful and minimize the risk, the political risk in the next election. You got to have a very robust framework thinking of how you want to do it. And for me, it's simply 4 C's. One is the previous count. Number 2 is candidate. Number 3 is competitor. And number 4 is constituencies. 4C framework in my thinking. So if you have a strong candidate against a weak competitor, and the constituency, maybe let's say, is younger than me, and in previous count we lost by 5%, that's where we prioritize. That's where we use our minimum resources in order to make it matter the most. And in that sense, you might be able to get the voting turnout to be quite good, and also a result-based campaign management that you can actually win. So the future is still unknown and it's still too far off, but it can be engineered and it can be designed if you use a lot of data science behind it and also proper resource allocation in order to come up with that target.
Thank you. Another question from Michael Montesano. I would like to revisit what you said about provincial politics. Isn't it important for the party to win the support of people actually living and working in the provinces in which they vote, rather than just those who must travel back to those provinces to vote?
Both is important. It's not an either-or question. It's about the size of the pizza and also getting that slice, but it's also enlarging the size of the pizza. in order to make sure that you have enough to secure. If you just focus on the denominator and the nominator, if you just focus on the market share, but the pizza size is really small. 100,000, only 50,000 is inside that province. So it's only a small size pizza. Even if you win a large amount of voters, it's not going to be enough. And the way we do politics is different. You know, we're not using patronage system. We don't take the public health officers in that particular province to come to Singapore to enjoy some field trips and return them back and things like that. So it's a different kind of politics. You definitely need to work on two things: enlarging the size of the pie, enlarging the size of the pizza, and if 70% is enough for everyone, and making sure you take care of that swing votes as well. You know, ability to take the market share out from the incumbent is also quite important. So both things are equally important to me.
So let's get back to people in the room. Yes, Dr. Temsak.
ดูคลิปจบแล้วอย่าลืมกดไลค์กดแชร์กดติดตามกดกระดิ่งให้ด้วยนะครับ